Hey, what's up everyone? Here I have the Boschett Cave Dweller, a blast from the past. If you don't know about the Boschett Cave Dweller, I would imagine you are new to the Microbrand watch world, because the Cave Dweller was actually the second watch released by the brand all the way back in 2009. Yep, 11 years ago. Throughout the years, the Cave Dweller has seen some minor facelifts and a lot of movement changes. The latest versions are powered by the Sellita SW200 Automatic Movement and are selling for $750. How does it stack up today? Let's find out. As I said, this watch goes all the ways back to 2009 and is still being made today. That is a long time for a microbrand to still be making one model. Most of the time, microbrands will discontinue a model after one or two versions, but Boschett has decided to keep pushing out this once very popular model. Yes, extremely popular. When these watches were first released, they sold out of the initial 100 pieces within a month. I believe those initial models also had the Miyota 8215 movements, and through the years, the Cave Dweller has been released with the 9015, ETA 2824, Prod movements, and now the SW200. But as I said, very little has changed other than which movement was being used. There have been a lot of dial colors offered, and this time around, new colors have been added as well. The orange you see here is new, and also added to the stable is green, teal, and white. Good old black, blue, and yellow are still available, as well as all get the choice of either a stainless steel or PVD bezel insert, as you see here. For those that are not familiar with these chunky 1,000 meter divers, it is 44 millimeters in width and 16.5 millimeters thick. It is also a hefty watch, coming in at around 270 grams. Now, I normally do not wear watches this large myself these days, and for those that will comment and say, don't you own a Breitling Seawolf? Well, I did own that specific Breitling, and in fairness, that watch was much bigger than this Cave Dweller. But just because the dimensions are bigger, that does not always tell the whole story. The width of the Breitling is in fact bigger, but it's the height of this Cave Dweller that makes it feel even larger. Or should I say the illusion of height. Yes, 16.5 millimeters thick is still a thick watch any way you slice it, but because of the massive case profile with a thin bezel and relatively flat case back, the thickness comes mostly from the case, which makes this feel somewhat like a hockey puck on your wrist at times. So yes, the Boschett Cave Dweller wears a little large for me these days, but for some watch enthusiasts, this would still be considered a small watch. It's all very subjective, and of course, we all like something different. The 5-link engineer-style bracelet is still present, as is the ratchet-style dive clasp. The bezel feels the same to me, easy to turn, but there is a little back play. The massive crown, on the other hand, it feels really solid, though it can feel a little rough when you're actually screwing down the crown. The dial with its large hands, applied markers, and minimum text is easy to read, and I really do love this shade of orange Boschett chose. I hope it comes across properly on video. It really is a deep orange hue, and the ever so subtle blue accents are a nice touch. If you have large wrists, you're in luck. This watch should fit up to about an 8.5-inch wrist out of the box, maybe 9, without extending the clasp at all. When it comes to sizing the bracelet, though, it is still old school, which means instead of a one-piece screw bar, you will have 2-piece screws with those tiny little screw heads, and you will need 2 screwdrivers to accomplish this task. As always, when dealing with screws in a bracelet, Loctite is going to be your friend once you have it sized where you want. Otherwise, you will notice screws getting loose, and if not caught in time, you could lose a screw, or even worse, the watch could fall right off your wrist. The lume used here is the BGW9 Super Luminova, and it glows nice and bright. If I remember correctly, the original versions used C1 Super Luminova, but it's been a long time, so I could be thinking of another watch. It is, after all, 11 years ago. This review has been like a walk down memory lane for me. It's been many years since I've had a Cave Dweller in hand, and like I said, not much has changed. It's not a bad thing, though. This watch represents a different time in the Microbrand world, where 1,000-meter dive watches were all the rage, although I think things are certainly different these days. The SW200 Movement this time is nice to have, and I haven't noticed any issues in my example. The combination of the matte dial and AR-coated sapphire crystal allows the glare to be kept to a minimum, and I have to say one of the biggest advantages of this design being a decade old is that it was before the helium release valve phase. Yeah, you can have a watch that can go deep without having the completely useless valve on your watch. I definitely have a soft spot for this watch, as I remember back in 2009 having to have this watch. I've owned quite a few of them over the years, but these days, I don't know if I would be wearing it on a regular basis. I'm sure if I wore it for 2 weeks straight, I would get used to the weight and the thickness of it again. It's like driving a car for a few years and then getting back into an SUV or a large pickup truck. There's an adjustment period. When looking at the Microbrand landscape, I do feel the Cave Dweller still competes very well. It is not the cheapest Microbrand, it is not the most expensive Microbrand, but you are still getting a very well-made and unique-looking diver, and dive watches are still as popular as ever. The only other thing I want to touch on briefly is the future of Boschett. The company has been on idle the past few years, and it wasn't until 2018 that newer batches of the CD were released. Before that, the brand was somewhat dormant. The owner, Keith Boschett, has always come across as a stand-up guy. But just like with many microbrands, what happens if you need a crown or bezel in 2 years? Will the company still be around? Obviously, the answer is who knows, but this is the gamble I think you take when buying a majority of microbrands. The Cave Dweller is still a beast and still a great-looking watch, but I'd love to see a new model from Boschett. But maybe at this time, it's better to stick with the tried and true. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share it. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. A link to the Boschett website will be in the description. Boschett isn't very active on social media, but Watch Report is. So if you want to stay up to date with us, give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or all three if you're so inclined. If you really like this video, I hope you will subscribe and hit that notification bell and check out some of our other reviews while you are here. This is Don saying thanks for watching, and talk to you on the next one.